Hello. I'm so excited. I'm here today in the Bay Area with my aunt, who's sitting delightfully next to me. Hidden from the camera. Do you want to be on the camera?
Oh, I will be, I'm sure.
Okay,
at
good.
some point, right?
Yeah, no, you're right here. There she is.
Oh, hello.
Looking short. She's not actually short. She's taller than I am. It's magical. So we are. I'm going to sit. So we're at the same level. Right, we're here in your studio today, and we are going to be doing a little tutorial video about costume sketching. And my aunt is a remarkable artist. You all know her work from these beautiful postcards you may have received as part of the Patreon. But you might also have received them as swag because I was moved by something delightful you did. So, but you've seen them. You've seen the art. That's Chris's work. Now, Chris, my aunt Chris, you have been doing art all my life, which is 137 years.
Yes, I'm so tired.
It's a long time. Time travel is very difficult. I'm popping in and out all the time and never seem to age. It's magical. So, but you've been doing art all my life and for most of your life. So you have some good skills.
Yeah, since I was quite young, I started sketching. Absolutely.
It's lovely.
Drawing strange little things, goldfish and this and that, squirrels.
I know you like squirrels. I remember that about you. And don't be startled. My aunt was sent to finishing school in the colonies, and I was sent to finishing school in the south of England, which explains so much about so many things, don't you think?
Possibly, or not.
Or not. Or not. So, but we're very happy to have you here with us. And so what we're going to do is look at some sketches I've done, and Chris is going to be kind enough to help me up my sketching game and share some tips with all of us. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely, my pleasure.
Excellent. If there's any wisdom before we turn to the art that you might share with a new artist, what would it be?
It would be mostly to give yourself space to relax while doing the work or sketching. Creating a nice spot to do it in. I think a lot of people struggle with that. They don't have, what I hear from people a lot is they just don't have a nice spot to do it in. And so therefore they kind of put it off a lot because it's not there for them. So I would say best thing is to try to create a nice space, have some tea, and have a nice little table space all set up, and music if you like it, and just try to relax as much as possible, because the more you make it kind of tense, I'm needing to really draw really great kind of thing, then it's no fun.
Excellent. Well, and it is cosplay, and art should also be a joyful, playful experience.
That's absolutely true.
So we're going to have some fun this afternoon, or this evening, as it were. It's sort of late afternoon here. I'm sure it's early afternoon in Japan. Or morning.
Hello, Japan.
Hello, Japan. We love you. So we're going to take a gander. I'm going to just move the camera down here. You'll still hear our voices, and also apparently all sorts of other things. So I'm going to try and rectify that. I apologise. All right. So here we go. Excellent. We're in our nice little space with our art right now. And you can also see this monitor, which is less exciting. There we go. Move that a bit out of the way. So good. Now, Chris, you had me put out a sketch I really like right now. And so I pulled out my most recent sketch, which is a blueprint as it were, for an upcoming costume build that we have going on. I haven't coloured it. I haven't even necessarily finished it, but it gives me an idea of what I want to be doing.
And this is a marvelous sketch as far as I'm concerned. Um, I think costume sketching is different from other types of sketching in that it can be at like shorthand just to remind you of your idea, and so that you can refer back to it and say, oh yes, I had this idea, and it may not even need to be more developed than this, but it is a reminder that you can constantly refer back to and say, oh yes, I wanted this trim here. Or so and oftentimes, when I have an idea or creative spark, I'll just, as quickly as I can, draw something down so that I don't forget it, because I do forget when I have that vision. If I don't put it down, then it's gone sometimes. You know that very well, I'm sure.
Oh, I do. I have a whole sort of series of documents for different ideas and concepts where I jot down notes about costuming, or some of the funny things that end up on swag. Go
Yeah.
into a little notebook and we keep notes on that.
Yeah,
And
notes are very important, and I just see this as kind of like a guideline type of sketch.
Absolutely. The costume may change quite a bit from here to completion, but I really always like to have a sort of shorthand of what the plan is, so I don't get too lost in the sort of fabric and fittings and patterning, which is very exciting, and it's easy to sort of get a little overwhelmed by the beauty of the fabric. There you go. Yeah. So she doesn't even have both arms.
Well,
she
you
only
don't
has
really,
one.
and you actually don't really need that. That's what I think is so great about the type of sketching you are developing, is that you already see and understand that you've got your sleeve, you've got
Yes.
your sleeve idea. Now, for instance, if you maybe want to try another type of sleeve on this side, you certainly could. You could make this sort of half and half if you wanted, and that is perfectly useful, very useful in this
Excellent.
kind of thing.
So one of the fun things that my dear tante did is that she gave me a pencil case. Oh, there it is, which I'm very excited about, as it's full of drawing implements, some of which I may never use, but they're here and I love that. And I'm especially keen about this new pencil.
Ah, yes, the Blackwing
The
pencil.
Blackwing.
They are lovely pencils, Blackwing.
It's so nice.
And they have a very softish, you can get them in different hardnesses and stuff, but I like the kind of smooth, softer um, lead, because it's just, you can go more smoothly with it. It just feels more pleasant. A hard lead uh, it digs into the paper more, and it's harder to erase. And um, also the type of paper, I encouraged Madame Askew to move over to this kind of Bristol board for sketching, and we got a pad of that. It's a smooth, heavier stock. It doesn't. It takes to the pencil better. A thinner pad like this, uh, it's not as pleasant to draw on. Let's just say paper is everything in many cases. If you're really liking the paper that you're drawing on, you're more likely to go back and draw some more.
Absolutely.
If you find that you're just drawing on paper that is not very pleasing or exciting, then you might just give up on the drawing altogether.
It's the same with fabric.
Right.
So I always encourage people to invest in their fabric because you are investing so much time into the process and the project. If you're working with fabric that makes you miserable working with it, you will be miserable wearing it.
Exactly. And you might even give up on it altogether, right?
It's absolutely possible. I know there were projects in my earlier years that when I was working on them, the fabric was so impossible. I just set them aside and never went back to them. And now they're dead. They're dead to me.
Exactly.
So the other nice thing about this pencil, which may have nothing to do with art at all, but first of all, it feels like a very deeply goth pencil. And it has the smoothest ferrule. It's very pleasant in my hand.
Satiny.
It's satiny. I've never had a pencil that felt so nice to hold before.
Yes.
So let me show you.
Plus, it also has, just a minute here.
Ooh.
It has the most sexy eraser feature here. So there's this lovely eraser that's detachable, and you can replace them. You can buy a very inexpensive package of little erasers that just pop right in there. And this particular style of Blackwing is called the Palomino. So very sexy pencil.
It is really good. It could also be called, dark skull or anything like that. Would be very good. But the eraser is absolutely gorgeous. That's beautiful. And as I had been originally sketching with mechanical pencils, I'm very happy to be moving over to this sorts of experience, as I found the mechanical pencils very steampunk, very industrial, also deeply unsatisfying. So this is great. Now you have done something on the Bristol pads in advance of us starting. You pulled out your straight edge, your little ruler.
Yes, I love the clear ones the best with the grid on them because it helps you figure out whether or not you can actually use it to figure out whether your lines are straight.
Yes.
And use it as a guide to create more lines in the grid. And it has a hard metal edge, which is useful for many things like cutting with a razor.
I was just thinking of cutting with a rolling blade.
Yes, it protects the ruler from the blade.
Oh, goodness. That's so nice.
Very good. And also, there are many types of erasers out on the market that should you find that you want something, you do a lot of erasing, for instance, there's different ones that have different thicknesses in the art store that are very pleasant too for erasing with if you don't want to use up your beautiful, sexy Blackwing eraser.
So good. So good. I'm very excited. So we're probably going to be expanding the ideas in this particular sketch as it's the current work in progress. And I am developing these ideas a bit. I've been working on a sort of a toile, a mock-up for the project. And there are some fascinating things that I'm doing that are new with this, mostly around trims. And so I'm excited to work up the ideas a bit more and take a look at how they might play on the costume. So, very good.
So yes, one of the things that I might say here at this point is that, okay, we have this wonderful bristle board here. You can even feel free to take it out.
Oh my goodness.
Like that. So you can work independently of the pad.
Can we see the front of that pad?
Oh, here, Bristol, Strathmore, Bristol.
Just turn it this way a bit. Yeah, no, this is lovely. And I like the Strathmore pads.
It's very affordable.
Yeah, no, it was not hideously expensive or anything like that. And this was not a conversation you and I had, but it was a conversation I had with another artist who said, if you are being held back from your visual art or your sketching by concerns over buying a sketch pad, it's $10. Go buy one. You can find that maybe in your airship cushions. Who knows? But they're not terrible.
Okay, and so then oftentimes when I first start out, I like to draw a center line just because it gives me reference for starting out. And I do that just because I don't like to be kind of willy-nilly all over the page. It's just my preference.
No, it's good. Well, you'll see here in this sketch, I was willy-nilly all over the page.
Well, it looks like you started a center line
I
here.
did
You
start.
have a center line.
I had a center
That's
line,
great.
but I ran out of space at the bottom to finish my sort of bottom of the skirt. And I realised that though I am a short person, apparently I think all of my drawing should be very leggy. And if I had only started a little higher on the page.
Oh, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Because, well, maybe not so much in a dress. You kind of know that there's going to be a top part and then this part and then a hem. It's just that, that's a pretty much of a given, unless you're planning on a really long train.
Sometimes I am.
So that you have to like add another page to.
Fold out an extension sort of thing.
But the beauty of this is that sometimes also, in this case, then I would, the other device that I use is tracing paper.
So beautiful.
Which is wonderful. And so then you can also Xerox this drawing, this rough sketch, and reposition it. And then overlay it with some tracing paper. And then begin again, just moving it up. You could cut your tracing paper, obviously, to the right size and where you want the page to end, and then just start redrawing. And that also allows you to kind of refine shapes. You can, build on that collar a little bit. You can have fun with tracing paper because you're not drawing on your original anymore. You can just go, you can go wild even. Just try out some different things. Refine the line.
That's lovely.
And say you wanted this to have like, and here you can try out different details.
I feel that maybe you were inspired briefly by Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra there in that detail. It's very
really
possibly
really.
It's very good. Has a bit of a lovely feel there with the crimped pleats.
Right, the crimp, that'd be gorgeous. Crimped pleats.
It wouldn't be bad. No, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Easier to think about it on the paper.
Yeah. So yeah, you can change, develop the drawing with the tracing paper, bring it out more. Really helps. And you're not stuck on your original drawing anymore. You're just playing. It's all about playing, really. Drawing is playing. And the more you do it, the more you like it, and the more relaxed you are about it, the easier you make it for yourself without all those judgments on, a lot of times it's the judge inside that is the worst, and derails many beautiful projects, I think. That judge that says, "Oh, this just simply isn't good enough," and you can start over again. It is all about trying things over and over again, and trying different things. The tracing paper is just a wonderful tool for that. And see, with the tracing paper, you can just kind of move it up there, and here you go. You can have more to your skirt.
You can have all the legs.
Whee!
All of them.
All the legs. So, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, how fantastic.
And Xeroxing is an amazing tool. A lot of times when I'm doing that quickie jot down the idea type of thing, if I take that, oftentimes it's smaller than I want the idea to really be. Right? I realize, this has to be bigger. This is a bigger idea than just this little tiny sketch.
Right.
And so taking it to the Xerox machine and enlarging it, playing with proportions is really helpful. And also you could go and, for instance, say you wanted to develop just this. You could do the Xerox, enlarge it, and then just go to town using the tracing paper, working out the detail on this bodice. You can just draw all sorts of little things on it.
Lovely.
On this enlarged Xerox. And enlarging it gives you more space to work the detail out.
That's fantastic. Lovely. Now, and I noticed many things about what you did. And one of them was your manner of holding the pencil. So I, of course, learned to... Hello, Deborah. Hello. We have our friend Deborah right here with us.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Deborah. So I learned to hold my pencil
way down.
Way up here. And that's mainly as I was learning to write. And so I noticed you hold when you're sketching.
A little higher up, yes, quite a bit higher up.
And then you're very soft.
I am.
In your approach. Oh goodness, that is actually very nice.
Isn't that nice?
Oh, that's lovely. So, speaking of small ideas,
right, there you go.
I have two on the page that are small views, thoughts that we were working out, and then like another sort of small concept, all in the margins of this one sketch. But yeah, I'm very used to this way up here. And do you find this at once that it gives you a little different control? Yes. But also, is it easier on your hands?
Well, you're actually engaging your whole arm that way.
Oh.
So if I'm down here, it's just my hand, and it's really cramped. It feels cramped. Sorry if I make a mark here.
No, it's all right.
But when you're up here, you can use your arm more, and it's not such a tight grip. My hand is more relaxed, and I'm not doing like little scratchy things. It's more fluid.
It's lovely.
This way, and you don't have to hold it way up like that. What is comfortable for you is best. But I definitely agree that being all the way down here is a problem, or can be a problem.
And we've discussed, and I have lamented publicly, that I'm very rough on pencils, and I break the leads frequently. And do you think that being down here, I'm a little bit more intense with my pressure?
Yeah, it's
I
possible.
do find up here I can't even press that hard.
Right.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Probably so. Yes, I think so.
So, Deborah, to answer your question, the sketch is for the costume for Gaslight Expo. that this would be my ensemble piece that I've sketched out here. And this is definitely early stages of the design. So, yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I'm very pleased with some of the things going on here. For instance, this little bit was actually suggested by a friend who reminded me Year of the Cape, and it is the Year of the Cape. Um, and then this little bit here was recommended by Temperance, who said, you know what would look really keen is if you piped the center seam on your sleeve again. I think you should do that. So
Nice.
I drew that in, and so you can see some of those ideas coming through. And then I've circled some areas that I'm focusing on. Yeah, no, take your time. So, pardon me. So, Deborah, this is not based on a fashion plate proper. This is actually, I took some patterns from Truly Victorian that I know I like, and I also looked at a host of different fashion plates, mostly fancy dress from the 19th century. And I was looking to see what they did when they were paying homage to Egypt. And I was pulling from that, and I was also pulling from some Egyptian art that I liked. And so I threw all of that into the blender, and this is an original concept, essentially, an original Victorian dress that I would make for a Victorian lady, in this case, namely myself. So, yes, good questions. It isn't supposed to be a keyhole neckline. And so, this is where it's really nice. Um, Chris's sketching paper, I sort of like it a bit opener, like this, than a proper keyhole, which would come, like more here to the center. And which I did very recently for the ambassadorial costumes.
Oh, yes, lovely.
And I do really love that. But I thought it might be nicer to open it up a bit, actually for comfort reasons, and then just wrap the collar the rest of the way around. So I'm sort of looking at that concept on the sketch.
Ooh, I'm seeing that you could have some kind of wonderful pendant or medallion dangling, or some kind of detail dangling down from that.
Yes, like a scarab or one of those.
Yes, a scarab.
Gorgeous, big, pieces of jewelry that was common both in the Egyptian revival and in Egyptian art. So yes. So yeah, those are some things. Is it more Mandarin? So
linen too.
And linen. All right, these are all good questions. So the collar is a stand-up collar. It's fairly narrow, but it does sort of dip down in the front. So it's not strictly a Mandarin collar. And I'm not using linen for this. I'm actually using silk for this ensemble. And on the Patreon, I will share some swatches of what we're going to be doing with the colors as a little, sneak peek. You've seen the colors.
Oh, they're incredible. Oh, they're just delicious silks.
Yeah, I'm very excited. From Silk Baron, my favorite fabric pusher, Deborah. I love them dearly. And part of what I love about Silk Baron is not only their colors, which are wonderful. Here, let's do this for a moment. There we go. We'll just come back and view since we're talking and rather than drawing at the moment. But what I love about Silk Baron is that they offer swatches of everything at a very reasonable cost. And so I swatch all of the fabrics now from them in advance. And then the other lovely thing about that, this is much less nice than my lovely pencil case. But the lovely thing about that is then I can get markers that are closer to the swatch, and I can, use the color to see if that's going to please me altogether.
Right.
And so that's been very helpful for planning. I've already discovered a couple of things I needed to change with the color selections, and was also inspired to add some things I might not have otherwise. So they're a wonderful source, and they do this beautiful shot silk that is iridescent. And
it's just absolutely
so good,
amazing.
so good. So I'm very excited, and I know we talked about not trying to outdo myself on every costume during the last live tea, and so I'm not trying to outdo myself compared to the ambassadorial costume, which I suspect may not be possible to outdo that costume anyway.
Was superb.
It's pretty delightful. And I love it. Honestly, I was very happy with how it came out, and really,
all the pictures just so stunning.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. But what I can sort of lean in on being more outrageous about is the color. And with this project in particular, I wanted to pay homage to how incredibly loud Victorian costume, Victorian dress was. They loved their color. With the Hibiscus Hurricane, it was all about that outrageous series of colors and the dying for a million years and nearly dying whilst dying. But with this, I'm not dyeing any fabric. But I did lean into some more outrageous colours. So it will be eye-catching, I believe.
Very iridescent.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a beetle's wing.
Like a beetle's wing. Exactly like that. So well discussed. Yeah, no, it is, but it's Egyptian. And it's true. I can see why linen would be a more obvious choice for an Egyptian ensemble. But this is sort of Egyptian fancy dress. And whilst linen was sort of the fabric de rigueur in Egypt in the ancient periods, the Victorians, when they were having their revival, felt like everyone should be wearing silk all the time. So do I. So this is going to be made out of silk. Also, I could not find linen in the primary color that I want, and that primary color is very important to be a good shades of that sort of thing. I know I'm sort of vaguely talking around what the shades are, but they're part of the surprise. And I like to leave some surprise. So let's see here. Deborah, let me see if you've added anything else. No, I think you're good. With the hello. Goodness. All right, good. With the YouTube comments, I'm still getting used to them and how they scroll and how to interact with them. So I apologize. But I can see your comments. Thank you so much for joining us. So with that, should I try a little sketching? Maybe?
Of course.
All right,
yes.
good.
If there's something that you want to do. Still back to the color thing. Again, with the Xeroxes, you could do several copies and try out different versions of color
which
combinations.
is very good.
So you're not destroying your original.
Which is very important. I am going to tell on myself a little bit. I did a sketch for Professor Plum, and Professor Plum became quite different when all was said and done. And there are some parts of this sketch I really like very much. And I had some particular purple plaid fabric that I intended to turn into a blazer. And so this is the sketch coloured, and I rather wish I had not coloured directly on the original sketch, because I would have done some things different with the colourways and my colouring, and I can't lift the colour now that it's there.
It's there.
But I could go in and just trace the outline.
Absolutely, you can.
And lift the image,
Yes,
which
you
is
can.
something I might do. Because I do like the base sketch, although I think the hands are rather rubbish. But
in this case, hands don't really matter.
They don't. I wear gloves on them anyway. So, but there are a few things that I'm considering changing up on this costume, and I'd love to sort of maybe focus in on a couple of areas, but also just get some insight from you on things I'm doing to help me improve my game. You've been actually very complimentary about my sketching, and personally, I'm very I feel really unconfident with my two-dimensional art. And my auntie and I have discussed this. I did not draw very much as a child, although it is considered one of the skills that a lady should have. I did miserably at drawing at finishing school, and so I didn't do much of it.
And certain elements were discouraging.
Yes, well, finishing school, teachers are not always kind. So, yes, there were some unkind comments made about my early attempts at sketching, and so I gave it up for almost the entirety of my schoolgirl years and much of my adulthood. So it's really fun to return to this.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to a chapeau. A chapeau, Deborah. You know there will be a hat. It will be. I have plans, big plans, very large, ridiculous plans for the hat. I've already started the hat frame. Please pray to all of the sartorial gods on that front, because I have some absolutely absurd plans for that chapeau, and I really hope that it shall turn out. It's not quite a headdress exactly, but it is a statement piece. So yeah, no, thank you, Deborah. I love it. I hope that someday you can meet Deborah. She's really a delight and a remarkable costumer in her own right. And I'm often deeply inspired by what Deborah is working on and her sewing acumen. And also, she's just a delightful human. And Deborah, you just have to put up with me saying very nice things about you right now, that I mean sincerely.
I do hope we meet someday.
Yes. So, if I were going to, I could lift this entirely over with tracing paper and work on it with tracing paper. But I also do want to get some practice sketching on the Bristol pads, which you have set up. Now, I think you can see very lightly this line running down the middle of the pads. So for those of you who are watching this, there's a very nice line. And I know that I want this sort of collar probably up here. So I'm just going to make a little notch for myself.
Exactly.
Often what I do is I start at the shoulders.
Exactly.
So, and I cannot draw that direction. I have to draw at an angle. Is that normal? I mean, or is that your
Well,
experience
yes.
as well?
It depends, but yes, mostly it's good to have it at a comfortable angle for your arm. Um, depends on many factors.
So, see here. I know that I want this sort of thing here. And so I'm also, when I'm working on a costume sketch, I am working with a sort of pattern or garment idea in mind, and that does really help me. Doesn't always mean that it starts out at the ratios I'd like for said garments. Yeah, no, I do. I think I like that more open rather than the more
Keyhole,
closed.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Looks more comfortable.
It will be. It will be more comfortable. You're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a thing I liked that you did on your sketch that you were taking from on the tracing papers, you gave this slightly more curve here at the neckline than I had given it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a nice. I mean, you really did. I'm just lifting that idea because I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my aunt is not wrong. This erases very nicely.
And the Bristol pad, the Bristol stock erases
It's
very
beautiful.
nicely.
It's beautiful. It's lovely to work with. So, right. The truth is, in my personal body, is that I have very narrow shoulders and they're slightly sloped, not terribly. And I don't necessarily get that across in a garment, but I know that they're not far from my bust edge. Yes.
So what I would say
Mm.
is at this point, it would probably be a good idea to figure out how much room you want to give your skirt here.
Right, good.
To make sure you've got your
My
skirt
hem.
line, your hem
Ooh,
figured
so
out,
clever.
and the point where your
My waist.
waist is.
Good.
And of course, this is obviously coming down a little bit below the waist, right?
Yeah, no, it
So
will.
Like that.
It
But-
will.
So you'll have that room for your skirt.
Oh, that's
Just kind of
very-
lightly plot that out.
Sort of like that. So I
Yeah.
don't. So I leave room for my hem, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. You end up with that problem again.
Again and again and again. That is a thing. So the bodice I'm considering is a sort of basque, and basque means simply that it comes over the hips a little, and I think that this sort of center point on the bodice would be nice, so I'm sort of intending to do that right now. And I'd really like to demonstrate that I'm not so boxy. So, yeah, I am a vain creature. I always seem to be tight lacing. So, with bustle dresses, and this is bustle, your front is more narrow, especially in the 1880s, which is sort of the era I'm most inspired by right now. And I know this. I know about an element, a decorative element that I'm plotting. And it's one of the most ambitious elements of the garment. So it's very important that I continue to include it in all of the designs so I don't forget about it. So
Oh, I love that.
thank you. So there's everyone who has followed me much with costumes knows that I love pleats to an absurd degree. And so I'm, of course, intending these deep pleats in the garment, but also then I'm intending, let's see, to do this sort of thing where I take a strip of fabric that is one colour on the top, another colour underneath, and I'm folding the underneath bit over and then sort of putting these little probably buttons or beads, or maybe they're going to be lotus blossoms that will hold it back. It will actually be hand tacked in place. But I also think it needs to be different ratio. That's 2 squats.
Nice.
So that's where I find especially the sketching to be very handy, because I need to see the ratios visually. And of course this doesn't have any numbers on it, but I would guess this is probably about 12 inches.
Right. Right.
So, and this looks like it's might be halvesies, right? Like
Right.
6 and 6 sort
Nice.
of thing. So that really helps me plot out the
Go 14, honey.
go for all right. I'm going. Yes. All right. Yes, Queen. Yes. All right. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go 14 and do what I want. And there we go. All right. I want to make RuPaul happy. So there we go. We're going to go 14. But I still feel like that's halvesies, right?
Right.
That looks good.
Yes.
And then the idea is that the pleat will appear that it's running up underneath this upper band, and so it will pop open as I walk, and it will appear to have a colour inside of it.
Oh, that is stunning.
Very excited. As I said, very ambitious. And then there's another element of the trim, which is this very narrow band of bias fabric that will cover the top edge of this. And that will be in a colour.
Incredible.
Right. So then on top of all of that, we have our lovely little overskirt. And so because I know roughly what pattern I'm using, I know that the overskirt, the bustle overskirt, meets at the middle, which really helps me again for my plotting. And also I know that I want to make it short enough to leave some room for this to breathe, but I might want it more like Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
So in this case, okay, to mirror what you've done here,
Mhm.
just loosen up a little bit and let your pencil just
Oh.
kind of
Oh.
go to mirror this
Oh.
angle. You know,
Yes.
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 There you go.
Thank you. This is what I want the tutorial. And also, I love my auntie, and I'm happy to be spending some.
We have had some fun with drawings all our lives.
That's true. There's this lovely thing. I think you still have it, where I was quite young, and we'd send this book back and forth between us.
Oh yes, the collaboration.
In correspondence, and I would have these sorts of fairy stories that I'd tell, and you were illustrating them. It was beautiful. I loved that. My favorite was about the fairy that lived in the California poppy.
Oh yes.
So good.
I do still have that.
That I love that. It was a real treasure. So, and my aunt was also frequently very generous with drawing dragons. So, as dragons are my personal favourite, that was wonderful. All right, so then we got this lovely little front piece, the apron, as it were. And part of why I'm sort of naming these parts is not only for everyone. Oh, ha! We've got some more questions and comments. Yes, all right. So let me take a moment here. So, Deborah, I will list the supplies. Absolutely. Hello, June. Hello, hello, hello. Very excited to see you.
Yes, Dick Blick.
Yeah, no, we did in fact go to Dick Blick. Was it Friday? When was it? Thursday?
It was Thursday.
Thursday, we went to Dick Blick, which is like a candy store. Love that place. It makes me want to do art, sort of the same way Bob Ross makes me want to do art. Yes, we do go to that Dick Blick, June. Precisely. Her daughter is almost your neighbour. She also lives in this area. So lovely. The collaboration was wonderful, and it continues to be wonderful as now, of course, we're collaborating on more sorts of grown-up projects, but still there are stories involved. And the Grand Arbiter and I send stories to my dear aunt, and she creates beautiful illustrations, which we then share with all of you. So that's lovely. It is very architectural. Thank you for noticing that. It's intended to be architectural, and it's inspired. This decoration at the bottom is inspired by the pillars I've seen in different Egyptian temples, and also by some of the Egyptian art I've seen in hieroglyphs and in murals on the inside of tombs and other edifices, edifice,
CI.
edificii. That's the new word, edificii. And so they have this sort of shape that this is not precisely the same, but it's inspired by that shape. And they are box pleats. It's very, you really notice that. They are box pleats. And so there'll be box pleats with this trim stacked on top of it and another trim stacked on top of that. And so a thing about making Victoriana that I think is very important to note is that they stacked their trims all the time. And the more depth you give to your trims, the better. So, yes. And yes, so good questions. And absolutely well observed. So, yeah. My intention here, and we had this lovely conversation earlier was that I intend for this to be lace down here, and rather than draw the lace, I've just been writing golds lace, which is very easy shorthand.
Exactly.
So, but up here in the bodice, there are some changes I'm considering. And part of that is because I have a couple of master patterns that I like working with, and one of them fits me so beautifully. And I'm so happy with that pattern. And I sort of want to go back to that base and hybridize it with another pattern. And so that base actually has this sort of panel
I love that.
in between. And so I think I want to bring that panel back in, as I just love the way it fits.
It
And
elongates, doesn't it, too?
yes, it does that, and it follows. I drew it straight here, but in actuality, which you cannot see when it's all sewn up, is that that whole seam is curved. There's nothing straight about it, which makes it fit so much more beautifully to my very curvy torso. And yes, thank you, Deborah. I think you know exactly the bodice pattern I'm thinking of. But rather than having this blunt line across the bottom, which is very fine, I want this point. So I'm going to turn it into a pointed front, which means just a little bit of adjustment to the shape. And then I'm totally revising the back of it. And so you asked earlier if I would do a back view, and I will be doing a back view. The back is also complicated, and because this whole ensemble is complicated, I love it. But the back will also be pointed, and it will have my, favorite little princess seams that I always love in the Victoriana, and because they're so bloody flattering, and they love everybody. And it's also one of those things where you can pipe every princess seam, which is so satisfying. Thank you. Oh, thank you. She says the hip line will change. Change will nicely echo the neckline, and
Right.
I think you're right, which would be lovely. And I also like. I think I'm going to take this sort of bit of serendipity and try making this bit a bit more curved. So the other idea was originally I was going to frame the neckline as a box, but I think what I'm going to do instead is this. And so this trim will be this trim.
Right.
I'll pick up this narrow trim and have it here in the bodice.
Perfect.
And then the bodice body will be mostly one colour. And I'm debating whether or not to make this middle panel the contrast, or to leave the whole thing very the same. But I think a contrast might be nice there. And so I made to make it obvious that I've, have this central panels there. But the biggest part of it is this seam line is so flattering, and it also allows for so much beautiful tailoring to the torso. It does also have darts here, which you can't necessarily see in the finished garment. And then because I'm busty, mine has a dart in the sides, which is not historically accurate in the extant garments. But how many extant garments are there for someone who's a K-cup? So needs must. Yes, needs must. Thank you, Deborah. But that's really like one of the big things is that I do have to make adjustments for being a very busty lady. So, but this was the big thing I wanted to to look at changing was actually redeveloping this bodice. And now that I'm sitting here with you and with all of you there, I really like this change. I think it would be good.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. And it also mirrors this. So probably, I'll be honest, this will be, and this will be, probably, and this will be, this will be. I might as well tell you, or I'm writing it in, but you can't read it.
Unless you can read upside down.
Right, and in very,
very
small. But I'm doing this in like a sort of lapis lazuli blue. And so I think it'd be really nice to carry that blue all the way through into the apron front, and then do the sides of the skirt in gold along with the sides and back of the bodice. And then the main body of the skirt here is also gold, but it's a different shade than the lace.
Yes.
And
it'll be a different texture to the lace.
Very different. Lace. Yeah, it's so nice to layer those textures. And then these would be golds.
I like this pointy element.
Yeah.
Is that going to be?
The lace has like a little bit of a dagged edge.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
So I don't have a sample of the lace with me, but it does. And I like that because, again, it's sort of architectural. And
it echoes this.
Yes. So the whole thing has a bit of an architectural vibe. And so a lot of that is absolutely premeditated, because I wanted to. Oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no. So yes, I'm definitely leaning into the fact that I'm a ginger, and so the colors for this are lapis, gold, and sort of a carmine, a really lovely red.
Oh, that is so addictive. Absolutely, those are the colors.
Right. So it's going to be gold on gold with a hint of carmine here in the reverse, folding back. And then this is going to be also the carmine. And then carmine here.
Beautiful.
And then the lapis and gold everywhere. And then the little shoulder cape is intended to be in the lapis as well. And I've been debating whether or not to finish it in the same gold lace. So, which I might do if I have enough lace. I have quite a bit. So, but this helps me out quite a bit, and that's why I like to do the sketching.
Or reserving the gold lace for the cuff.
Cuff. All right. So this cuff element.
The cuff element.
So
is it pleated as well?
Yes. Yes. Yes, girl. Yes. So arms are like a thing. I'm trying to up my arm game, because I find arms very difficult. Like, that's not an arm, that's a tentacle.
Well, I always use the elbow as a reference point. So
thank you.
May I
yes, please
demonstrate here?
Yes,
so,
please.
Okay, so, and the elbow kind of comes in at the waist.
Oh, the waist, which
so
is it.
You can kind of come down like this and know that your elbow is just about here. And so then you can start on the other part of the arm like that. And the arm ends right a little bit below the hip.
Below the hip.
Yeah, this is a little long of an arm too,
it's
but
very long.
For sketching purposes, we're fine here.
Hello. Mon oncle just arrived, so it's a family affair. So yes, this cuff is hard to see in the smaller sketch, but it's actually this reverse. but it's just this top part. And so the idea is that I will pick up those reavers again, and I will be
Oh my.
doing that. And I absolutely could either put lace up here and have my lace stick up,
Or just the trim of the carmine
or just the trim of the carmine, which is very tempting, and then have lace picking out just at the cuff, just a little bit. This is a thing I think I have learned more recently as I'm sort of looking at fashion plates, and that is that you are not required to use the whole width of the lace. You can cut it apart and use different bits of it. Put different bits in different places. So, yes, yes. No, I don't want the cuff. I don't want the cape to distract from my chapeau. Very good points. It's going to be like a low-key cape. Low-key, just small cape action. So it's actually going to be only a shoulder cape on one shoulder. So it's not going to go all the way across my body and be on both shoulders. It's going to be a little Scarlett O'Hara green curtain dress.
Cool
idea. So just on this one shoulder. A petite cape. Yes, exactly. So I think we're going to wrap up for now. I hope that you all learned a few things as well as seeing my sketch. Yes.
Did someone want a list of materials?
List of materials. So let's talk about what we are using here. This is the
Strathmore Bristol. And these little pads are very inexpensive. It's a nice smooth. I usually choose the smooth surface, nothing with texture, because that's distracting and it's not useful for these purposes. So I use these all the time. They're really great for getting your ideas down, and then you can take it to the Xeroxer and Xerox it and use it different ways. And also, I buy tracing paper by the roll as opposed to the tracing paper pad. If that's all that's available, tracing pads are fine too. But I just like this because I can, if I really need a huge sheet, a long sheet, which is very rare, I can. But I can also just use little tiny pieces, and I don't have to have a whole pad. And then, yes, the Blackwing pencil.
Yes, it's so good.
They do sell them at Dick Blick, and but they don't have a huge selection of them. They only have this particular one. These Blackwings come. You can go online. They come in a range of finishes. It's virtually the same pencil no matter what color it is, but they also offer it in this pearl white. It's the same pencil though. Oftentimes the black ones are sold with black erasers. I don't necessarily like the black erasers, so I buy a pack of the white erasers because. Anyway, also you can buy extraneous erasers of various kinds. They have different shapes. There's ones that have really tiny little points to them, and they're wonderful for fine erasing. This one is made by Statler.
You can cut and shape with a blade.
Yeah, you can also cut this with a blade. The other thing I do use mechanical pencils. This is just a straight-on Bic mechanical pencil, nothing fancy at all whatsoever. But those are handy for very fine lines if you don't want to have a lot of lead. So that's about it, really.
Yes, thank you. And yes, I will do a write-up of the patterns I'm using and the fabrics and that as well. But in terms of sketching, moving to this Bristol pad has been a revelation for me. And that Blackwing pencil is a joy to work with. I love it.
It's all about that. It's all about that, having things that you really love to use.
Yeah. So I'm going to finish up here, put us back on the lens. Hello. So thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. Thank you, my dear aunt,
Yes,
for sharing this time with me and with June and Deborah and everyone else who's able to watch later. If you love my aunt's art as I love her art, and I am biased. She's been making art my entire life, again, 137 years. So she has a lot of experience.
Imagine how old I am.
I mean, you're 138, clearly. So time travel is very confusing. But if you love my aunt's art, you can purchase originals, prints, cards at Wood Horse Press on Etsy. You can follow the link on my Facebook page to her Facebook page. And if you message me, I will definitely give you her email address for contacting her for commissions. So do you have anything to add on that front?
Oh, that's about it. My Etsy shop mainly offers right now handmade cards and in all of my current work. And I love making the cards. They're little works of art. They can be used as altarpieces or to send to a special friend. And they're all entirely handmade, and they're made to order. They're not mass printed cards. So that's my joy. And I like that because it has a smaller footprint for the earth.
It does.
And so that's about it, really. Yeah, check out Wood Horse Press on Etsy.
And who knows, maybe we will return someday to our fairy tale story collaboration. That was a real deep pleasure as a child. So thank you all. This was wonderful. Oh, one more thing before I sign off and we sign off. There is going to be a new piece released this month on the Patreon, a new colouring book page done by Chris, a pen and ink work, in the same sort of, not exactly the same style as this, but something beautiful and colorable. And it would give me great joy to see what you do with them. If you color them, and you should color them, please post that, because it would make me very happy, and then I can show my auntie, and that would make you happy.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's going to be very fun coloring page.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's my favorite thing so far. So I'm very happy for that. So yes, I think that's it. Thank you all so much for being here today. This has been the usual, live stream all over the place. Thanks for popping over to YouTube. I know it's different, but I really appreciate you being here with us. And I will see you all back in Tucson. Look for some videos at San Diego Comic-Con and at Costume College as much as I can do. All right. Cheers.
Cheerio. Thank you.